Welcome to another Daily DTG. I'm Brian.
I'm Dean.
Let's get to it. All right. It's another Daily DTG.
Yes, we are here.
And
exciting.
it's still cold outside.
Oh, it is. I hate it. Let's not talk about that.
Okay. Let's talk about DTG.
Yes.
Actually,
well, let's talk about us a little bit.
Let's talk about
Who the heck
us.
are these two crazy guys that you're listening to right now?
That is a very good question. Tell me about yourself, Dean. How did you get into this industry?
Well, it was a hot and cold November night, I think, when I was created.
Hot and cold.
Well, if you know what I mean. Oh, how far back do you want to go?
No.
My creation?
No, let's not go back there.
I thought, okay.
No.
Okay. So, industry specific.
Industry specific.
Right.
How did you get into apparel decorating more specifically?
There we go.
Direct to garment.
Yes. My background is actually graphic design. I went to school for graphic design, graduated from college. I have a BS of Science, Bachelor's of Science.
I was going to say, you got a lot of
BS. It's a BS, yeah. It's a Bachelor's of Science in graphic design. Did a bunch of agency jobs, advertising jobs, worked in the corporate realm, worked for a bunch of very high-end clientele, very well-known, reputable brands, but I always was a hands-on guy, right? So I had an opportunity one time. My father is a lacrosse coach at my high school alma mater. He came to me one day. He's like, "Hey, can you design us a T-shirt?" And I said, "Heck yeah!" And I actually never did a T-shirt before this, and I was like, "Sure." So I designed it. It looked really cool, and I said, "Well, I kind of looked into it. How do you design a T-shirt, right?" So I thought about screen printing. So I tried to do limited, and he's like, "No, they digitally print." And I was like, "Whoa, this is kind of crazy." This was 2010, I think, around there. So then I was like, what is digital apparel printing? So I looked into that. Eventually, I had the opportunity, I started asking some questions, to buy that company, the company that they used to print the shirts for this lacrosse team. And I was like, whoa, and then I started thinking about it. At the time, the company was failing. It had some success, and which is kind of crazy because that's how our interaction eventually came to be. But it was a company that was sold to a group of investors. The group of investors had no idea what to do. They basically ran into the ground. At the time, I was working for, I'll name drop here. I was the senior print designer for K Jewelers at the time, and had some money and said, you know what, I think I'd like to start making T-shirts, doing some side hustle stuff. So I was doing my corporate job, and then I also had bought this T-shirt company that was failing. I was like, what do I do with it? I basically bought it for inventory, bought it for equipment. They sold off all their screen printing stuff that the company originally had that built it pretty big, and strictly kept their direct-to-garment printer, which was a Brother GT541. So from there, the first time seeing that machine, though, it was like, oh yeah, it's like
the light bulbs
this is
went
so
off,
crazy,
especially for a designer.
Yeah. So being creative and then like hands-on, I'm always liking to work on stuff, and kind of have that mechanical mindset. I was like, this is it. This is the future. Like, this is where it's gonna go. So eventually, I got to the point to where I was, going, like, I either have to go all in or sort of just always have this as a side hustle, and it's like side money. So I was like, I want to do this all in.
So you did the insane thing.
I did the insane thing, and luckily had a very supportive family. My wife was extremely supportive. And I quit my corporate paycheck.
Okay, rule number one, make sure if you are married that your wife or spouse is all on board, because if not, it ends badly.
First lesson of learning. There's some knowledge we could drop. Yes. If there's a significant other in your life, please make sure that they are highly involved in all of your business decision making, because
it affects them too.
It does. So luckily, everybody was very supportive. I quit my corporate job. Of course, I had other family members that were not of that mindset that told me I was absolutely insane and why would I do that and blah, blah, blah. But I quit that corporate job, took on my shirt shop, which I rebranded as NSD Designs, which stands for Never Say Die. So that's sort of my motto still to this day. But and then picked up I was a manager at an AutoZone for a little bit, and then I worked at a warehouse part-time and took care of a warehouse.
Just as a supplemental
dock loader,
thing.
because I still had, we eventually had a kid and we were growing family. So I had to have something that still had a regular paycheck, but I was fully focused on growing the business.
And typically a lot of times though, a lot of the advice I've heard is don't quit your normal job until you have your income from your secondary or the business that you're trying to start equals at least what you're making. But you did the crazy thing.
I
and
did.
Jumped all in. But you had a supportive wife, and she
has a good job. Yeah, she had a good job, and we had a little bit of money saved up, and I was all in. You have to. There's a weird part when you're growing a business where you have to make these extremely, and then you always have to be thinking about the future. So I made the decision. I wanted to go all in. This was 2012 is when I got into it and got my hands on the first direct-to-garment printer. But that machine only printed CMYK, no white. So a couple years into it, then I kind of sold that off. That was an interesting story, which I'm sure will come up at some point. But that little 541 had 130-some thousand imprints on it or something like that.
Mileage.
Yeah, it had some, and I went through some heads on it. But sold that off, got a repurposed machine. So it was an Epson repurposed machine that could print white. And then I was really cooking, right? I was like, this is awesome. But then I started figuring out production. I needed volume. Right, it wasn't just onesie twosies weren't going to cut it. So I gradually progressed everything into screen print. Got very heavy into screen print. Had an eight head press, 6-station, and a 4/4 press. Got into a automatic press, and that was ran NSD eventually full time. Quit all my side jobs. Was full time with NSD for about 5 years, and direct to garment was always there. I always had it as part of the business, and I always had this drive to want to go into it hardcore, to get another machine that could keep up with the production and kind of shift my focus back to that to keep up for volume. I just couldn't justify the expense and being the
really
nerd that
really at that time though the technology
that's exactly what I was going to say.
The production capacity wasn't, because that would have been 2018. 2015 to 18, which at that point white ink production was a lot slower than it is today.
Yeah, and the machines I had, I eventually got two of them. They were phenomenal. The print quality was fantastic, but they were slow.
Yeah.
So slow. So that's why I had to do the screen printing, and eventually that customer base took up.
And there's a lot of I think a good lesson in that in and of itself is depending on your business model.
Yeah. You
could go strictly direct to garment printing, but if you're going to be doing larger volume stuff at a lower cost, direct-to-garment isn't necessarily, especially at that time, necessarily the way to go. If I'm doing 300 one-color shirts, I want to screen print that. I can knock it out quicker and just run.
And that's totally based on your niche and your customer base. And at the time, the customer base that I sort of fell into and my design niche and everything was all volume play. But I always had customers that were like, hey, I want this photo, or I want a really crazy design, go as wild as possible, but I only want 5 of them. So then I would be like, oh, we can do that as well. And of course, the gains on selling something like that, I could charge out the wazoo. I mean, I remember one charge I told somebody it would be $50 for a shirt, trying to kind of blow them off, essentially, because I was so busy, and they were more than happy to pay that, and I was like,
well, because it was a custom one-off shirt.
yeah, and they loved it, and they absolutely were more than happy to pay that, and I was like, whoa.
But here's the thing with that. And a lot of people getting into, I think, direct-to-garment, even T-shirt design in general, don't think about this a lot. How long did it take you? I mean, I know you don't remember exactly, but how long would it take you to make not just print,
the
design, layout, art approval, all that for one shirt? And that's what a lot of people, I don't think, really take into account in this industry is how valuable is your time? And what's your time worth? Actually, what are you worth? And how does that translate into the cost of the shirt? So exactly. $50, did it take you an hour? 2 hours?
Probably. Knowing me and what I had into it, and I kind of enjoyed it, I took...
Too long?
Yeah, too long. But to make it sound cool, I guess, to charge $50 for a shirt is still really cool. Now, and especially if it's multiple shirts.
Oh, yeah. If it comes back into multiple shirts and stuff, that makes a big difference. But, it sort of goes back to what we're trying to explore here in the Daily DTG Show is doing it also profitably.
Exactly.
And learning. And that's where one single shirt, if it's a pre-made design that's already been done and you can print it over and over and over and over and over, you can make money on that.
Yep. And
hey, can you make this design, just this picture of the stick figure, can you have his arm up instead of down, that type of stuff. Tiny tweaks and you spend back and forth with the customer. I shouldn't say you're wasting time. It depends on your business model.
Yeah.
But if you want to remain in business, your time is extremely valuable.
It's like, it's just use the tools that you have for the job that they are intended to do. Because there was a lot of jobs where, like, say it was a family and they wanted this photo of, family reunion. We did a lot of that, but they wanted a bunch of youth shirts too.
Yeah. Well, that makes it easier. But I'm talking about that single, single shirt and being profitable.
Yeah.
But
we
digress.
Back to the story. And for the longest time, almost the entire time that I had NSD going, which was 9 years, or a little over, I think, I never really paid myself, which is...
A lot of business people fail to pay themselves.
Yeah. I mean, we were able to survive, and it was like, if something came up in my personal life, yes, we had it, but I wasn't taking a paycheck. Luckily, my wife's a nurse, and we made it work. Right, but it got to the point where, like, hey, it's a growing pain type of thing too. And this was COVID hit, and my business at the time, I grew it back up to a 6-figure business. It was getting there. It was kind of in that stage of, hey, this could be something amazing. COVID hit. We lost a ton of customers because we were doing a lot for bars and restaurants and all these things where they cut that out of their expense. And I had to let my main production guy go because I did have some employees. I had people that clean screens. I had a production employee and one other part-timer.
All the fun stuff you get to do with screen printing.
Yeah. But I had basically it went down to me, El Solo again, and
that makes it tough
because
you can't
very tough.
You can't build your business.
I felt like I was going so far. I made it so far, and there was nights where I was sleeping in the shop, or I would have to go home and get the kids ready to go take them to the sitters, and then go back to work and just putting in all these hours, literal blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah. And then to have something that I couldn't control take such a hit to me, it really took a hit to me, and then lo and behold, I failed to mention
for a while.
Well, I failed to mention that the company that I bought was actually Brian's original business. Now, we didn't know each other prior to this at all. I bought it in 2012, and I didn't reach out to you.
But you didn't buy it from me. You bought it from somebody I had sold it to, and
they got into that investors and
there
stuff.
were issues, and you
Yeah.
ended up acquiring
But
it.
your
Well,
name-
that's putting it the nice way.
Yeah, and so your name was on all of the paperwork and stuff because it was your company originally. And I think 2 years into it is when I finally tracked you down and picked up the phone and we talked. And I think we kind of clicked right away. Just it was a real quick introduction. Hey, I'm Dean. I'm still kind of in the area, and I bought your business. I renamed it as this, and this is what I'm kind of doing. And I'm still into direct-to-garment. And then we started talking, and
By that point, we had already started doing the pre-treatments
Yeah,
and inks
so-
and everything.
so-
And I think that's
You brought over
pre-treatment.
I got
and
to
stuff.
turn on the very first batch of RTP apparel shirts. I got to use some pre-treatments that you first started using, like the inks. I was running your inks in my machine at the time. So, but eventually, once COVID hit, I called Brian out of the blue because there was another product that came to market that is sort of competing or in the same space, and I asked your opinion on it, and you gave me a really cool response. I was like, wow, I didn't think of it that way, you know. And we finally, you just.
I'm like sitting here going,
So I brought up the Sanmar shirt, and because
because
it
of
competes
the-
against
okay.
RTP, because RTP for the longest time was the only pre-treated shirt, right? And then Sanmar came out with theirs. And this was kind of around that time, and I called you about that. But I think kind of over the years, we always joked like, hey, why don't you hire me or something, or I can't wait to work for you.
actually, he was very persistent, and I think he just wore me down. But that's another story.
Is that really what it came down to? Great. Now I feel wonderful. No, I'd like to think that I'm here because
And we got a lot of good stuff cooking.
Yeah.
But that's sort of how you ended up
that's
here.
kind of how we got into it. And then, so yeah, how I got to here is I had to make that decision after that phone call. I think you were at the stage where your business was growing and you realized you might need a guy of my capabilities and said, hey, let's talk. Let's see if we can make this happen. And I think in 3 days, I made that decision to shut down my shop and to come and start working for you.
And
So,
I think that's a good point for this episode of the Daily DTG is starting your own business is extremely difficult.
well, I mean, get into your story, man.
No, well, we can. I don't want this episode to go on too long, so we'll probably do that in the next episode. But I figure we could tie in some good material for people thinking about starting a business and everything. Just even from your example, when I started out and had the screen printing shop, this is way back. Even before I had kids, I spent, like you, hours. And I mean, it would be 16, 18 hours a day busting
For
butt and
months on
working
end.
in the business. And it's funny as I've gotten older, and which is more than likely the best answer as to why you're here, is what I'm trying to do is build a business, but you can only do so much by yourself. And when you had to let your people go, that impacts you because you're taking several steps back.
You're putting all the weight back on your shoulder.
You get to a point where you can only produce so much as an individual.
Yes.
When you add good employees, yes, it is an expense, but you should be able to multiply what you are doing. I.e., you've got this, and it's not what I would call zero-sum game or 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
It's more like I bring on an employee, instead of being able to do 100 widgets, or let's just say 100 shirts
Yeah.
as a baseline, 100 shirts. Now, with an extra employee, hopefully we should be able to do
300.
200, 250, 300
shirts. Yeah,
just
yeah.
because of efficiencies and extra help. And it should be a multiplicity type thing and not a subtractive type thing.
Yep.
And, the old adage of be happy if an employee does 80% of what you would do, I think is a good thing, because you need to set expectations, but at the same point, you have to realize that, and I'll pull this, you're probably slightly different because you've had a business. And what do I tell everybody here at our shop? treat this
as your own,
because it is.
It is.
I mean, technically, it's my butt on the line, but at the same point, it's the people that make it happen, and finding really good people.
And that's the point that I was going to say is you have to hire correctly as well.
And that's hard, especially in today's. It's difficult in general, but even more so today, just because of I deserve and this, and it's like, nobody really deserves anything. Earn it,
please.
That's my thing. Earn it, just flat out. You expect me. Respect is earned, not given.
Yep. And going back to when I lost my employee, I actually had him starting as an intern, and realized really quickly how amazing he was to bring on to the things that I was doing. We complemented each other very well. He was very creative. He was just a very good person, and I was allowed to feel comfortable in giving him tasks to know that he would get them done and exceed my expectations. So then that really
allows the business to grow.
It did, and so that's what allowed the business to grow.
It allows you, and I think that's the biggest thing in a lot of business owners. It's difficult, especially making transitions in your business journey. There's a good book out there. It's called Crossing the Chasm. And I can't remember the author offhand, but it talks about, you start a business, you build it up. You get to a point where you can only go so much bigger. Then you bring on an employee. Then you bring on more employees. And there's a lot of different aspects to the book, but it's one of the big ones is making the change from being an employee in the business to managing the business.
Well, working back to your point,
and
working
learning
in the business as opposed to working on the business, and it's hard to do both at the same time.
It's incredibly difficult because it's like, I'll do that. You did it wrong. I'll just do it. And even to this day, I struggle with that. Don't even give me that look. Because it is like, hey, is that artwork? Just forget it. I'll do it myself.
Natural human instinct.
It is because this is what, as a business owner, and that's what I'm trying to foster here is, hey, this is our business. If we do extremely well, everybody's going to benefit.
Yes.
And I think that's something that a lot of business owners, if you're starting a business, need to take into account. Do a good profit sharing program. Try to treat the employees like you would want to be treated. I got, it's like my parents always said, you have to have the business to be able to do that, and the profitability to do that, because one, you need to pay yourself as a business owner. If you're not paying yourself, you're sort of running a big hobby that can get real expensive. I mean, when it comes down to it, because you had kids. I remember at my juncture, things had to start changing when I was sort of in a similar situation where we lived off my wife's salary.
Yeah. As
I'm trying to build the business, and I busted my butt trying to make it work.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like I kept hitting roadblock after roadblock. But I also learned a lot of perseverance in that. The hard work, I mean, when you're busting your butt 14 to 18 hours a day,
for months on
and you go home, eat, sleep, and immediately get up, and it puts a major strain on your marriage.
You question your sanity, like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, why? Because I don't see any return on it. And it's easier to do when you're young. I mean, I'm seeing that with my oldest kid. It's like I keep telling him, now's the time to do something. You have the energy, everything. I'm getting old and cranky, and he calls me old man and all that stuff. And it's like, but when you step back and look at it, and that's sort of what I want to do here with the Daily DTG is take some of these experiences, translate it into good content to encourage people so that they can be successful in the business.
100%.
But the biggest thing I will say is don't sacrifice your spouse for the business.
Yeah, no.
Because you'll end up single and alone and old and crotchety anyways by yourself.
And just look back and go, why?
It wasn't worth
it.
Yeah, it wasn't worth it.
So luckily, my journey and my story kind of came to this fruition to where, I kind of went full circle. It's weird that I started with DTG and went to screen printing, and then now I'm back to DTG or in the direct-to-garment
Just on
space.
a different side of it.
Yeah, but speaking back to your point, it's the whole thing is a learning curve. Even if you are doing this hopefully you're in direct-to-garment to make money, right? I'm sure there's people out there that
just
love
doing
to do
it for fun.
And that's totally cool.
Yeah.
If you can afford to do that, that is awesome because you will always love it.
Yeah.
You can afford it. You will always love it. You can sell some
especially if you're
shirts.
creative.
Exactly, and you can make some shirts. You can sell. You just do things as a hobby. Awesome. If you are in this to make money and sort of have a business and turn it into a bigger business, hopefully the things that we share will bring some insight as to go, oh, I never thought of it that way, or hey, that's interesting. I'm glad I'm not the only one that kind of went through that. So.
Yeah. And it is extremely difficult to start your own business. And I think you have to have a certain mentality of, like you said, never say die.
Well, it takes
there is no other option.
Yeah.
I joke around here that, we either sink together or we swim together. And which is true, because if the business goes under and you have 150 employees, everybody's out of a job.
Yep.
But the captain goes down with the ship, and that's but everybody suffers. On the Titanic, there's a lot of people that died. And a business I think is sort of like that. But
if you do it smart,
but if you build your business smartly and sustainably,
smart and sustainability are two factors that you definitely need to consider.
And we're not talking the eco-friendly sustainability. We're talking
business
profitability.
Yeah, because there are companies, and we, especially being where we're at in the industry, we've come across. I know personally, I've come across companies that got huge, right? They are massive. They literally have multiple warehouses of 200 plus banks of printers, and you think that they are just going to the moon,
and
right?
And
then all of a sudden,
it's like they're selling all the printers off, and poof, gone.
The floor falls out. They are gone the next day because they didn't think about this.
It wasn't sustainable from a profitability standpoint, and that's where I think a lot of it. Going back to that one shirt at $50, you spend 2-3 hours on it.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to support a family.
Yeah.
Doing that. Every once in a while, it's okay. My mom, love her to death, said, "Hey, I got this idea," and she sent me this little picture she took with her phone of a T-shirt for a veteran that she saw in a magazine.
Yeah.
Hey, so and so wants this. Wait, could you do this for them? For me? I'm like, yeah.
It's your mom.
It's my mom, so I had to do it, But it's one of those things where, and we'll get into this at a later point, I actually used AI to generate the graphic for it, and I knocked it out in 15 minutes. But that's another whole story.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that'll be a great episode.
It's going to be.
Especially with direct-to-garment.
It is going to be
amazing.
But the whole point of that is I was looking at it originally going, holy crap, this is going to take 3-4 hours. Where am I going to get this artwork? Something similar to it. And, I'm like, this is going to be a real pain in the butt. But I was able to knock it out. In custom artwork for custom people, $50. If it takes you, say, 3 hours, 2 hours, it's $25 an hour, less the cost of materials and everything.
Yeah.
You're maybe making, and that's not even overhead expenses. You're making, you aren't making anything to be able to survive on.
And to simplify your point, it's the numbers, right?
It comes down to numbers.
The numbers don't lie. You have to know your numbers, and so I'm a creative, given my background that we just learned about. The business sort of was the unnecessary, or like the, what's the word, where it just sort of came with it. Like I was more of the creative, and I'll figure out the business part, which
can be dangerous.
It was multiple times. So like know your numbers as well is another thing that I learned from my journey. Is if you don't know your numbers, it's not going to work, regardless of, hey, I made some money on this job, but you have to make
consistently
make money on every job, and then consider all of the expense.
And
the expense is a lot.
We'll talk
Yeah,
about
we'll
that
get
in
into
another
that,
episode. But I think really what it boils down to is learning and learning,
learning.
and being open to learn not just business, but the techniques and DTG and business concepts.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of most people that start businesses haven't gone to business school. And I hate to say it, I think even those that have gone to business school don't know jack about business because it's all book work. You know, it's like you might be book smart, but you're street dumb.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yep.
And
meet a lot of those.
And that's where a lot of the hard knocks come in. And I've made plenty of mistakes, too many to count over the years. And you know, that's what we don't want to see happen in this industry for people getting into it, because I have seen so many people be sold a bill of goods on direct to garment. Oh, you can make $30 a shirt doing this and that, or, you know, whatever. I'm just using outrageous numbers.
How quickly it'll pay for itself.
It'll pay quick. In a certain scenario, that is true. In a certain location, certain area, it's, you know, there's so many variables that go with that. And that's why I always tell people and talk to them and say, you know, what's your business model? What are you trying to achieve? Oh, you may not want to look at direct to garment, or hey, oh my God, that's an awesome idea.
This is perfect for you.
Yeah, this is great. You know, so I think that's the biggest thing that probably to take away, even from your story, is there is a journey, and we all have one. We are all on that journey.
Yeah.
Especially going through direct to garment as a business and trying to, you know, support our families and everything associated with that.
And enjoy what you do.
And being able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And there's, trust me, I call it entrepreneurial PMS. There are days where I do not want to be here. And any relation?
What do you mean? Like,
What do you mean? I'm talking about there's days where it's like, why the hell am I doing this?
Yeah, you know.
But I call it entrepreneurial PMS. It's like you have those up and down days.
But then there's other days when you come in and you're jumping off the wall.
God,
and you are
it's
so
like we can do
stoked
this and that and da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah,
and you have to be able to ride, I like what somebody said once, you have to be able to ride that fine line between sheer terror and sheer exuberancy through the day and be able to hit both ends of that spectrum multiple times and be okay with that.
Yeah.
You know,
It is.
am I going to live today to come back tomorrow to print
and do it all over
and
again.
do it all over
Yeah.
again? And I think that's the biggest thing is realize that, one, don't sacrifice your family relationships. Don't become, I guess, not disenfranchised, but discouraged over things the small stuff.
Yeah.
I joke around here, if it doesn't kill us and we learn from it, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
it makes us stronger. Yeah. So that's the biggest thing I would say is, you know, be open to learning, be open to learning business, and being able to make those hard decisions at times. And you know, that's tough.
And the reason
your hard decision was giving the shop up and coming here.
Yeah. And that was a extremely, I mean, I'll admit it on camera. And I mean, you were there. I during the interview process, I started crying because it was actually starting to hit. Like, obviously I already knew what I was going, but talking about it and working through it all, I realized like everything that I put into it, I'm sort of not necessarily losing it, but I'm just transitioning to another stage of my career path.
Yeah,
but it
helped prepare for that future stuff, and that's one of the big things, I think, is realizing everything that you do in life is a teaching lesson that helps shape the road. It helps shape the road that you go on.
You should take it that way.
Oh my God, I had talked to myself when I was a freshman in high school starting to do graphic arts. I would have never thought I would have ended up here doing this, or doing what I'm actually doing today.
Yeah. It is cool to look back, for sure.
It is. Hindsight is great for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And learning from those mistakes. Like I said, we've all made them. You're going to make them.
Yeah.
It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. And I think that's a great takeaway. It's like, yeah, the business, you probably could have made it work, could have continued to make it work. COVID didn't help.
No.
Didn't help a lot of people.
I made my decision.
It was just bad timing.
And I made my decision based on, okay, I made all this progress. How long did it take me to make the progress to where I was at? And then how quickly did I lose a lot of that progress? And how long is it going to take me to gain
make it back?
And then, we also had some personal decision. I have 3 kids now, so more expense and all this other stuff. But, direct to garment, you're making an investment in yourself. Not only if you're buying a direct to garment machine, or if you have one, you've made that investment decision, right? Excluding the hobby stuff, but still you're making money off of it. You're not buying a direct to garment that goes, oh, I'm just gonna let it sit there, right?
You better not be. If you're doing that,
yeah, we'll take the money instead.
I can find a lot better ways for you to spend that money.
Yeah, we'll invest it for you. But so you're making this investment, which is essentially a car. You're buying a car
and investing in yourself,
and investing in yourself as well. So learn from. Hopefully, we can give you some things to learn from, and make that investment back, and then exponentially, 10x, 20x it, and grow it, and enjoy it the whole way.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. Looking back, yes, there are moments of extreme stress and extreme this and that. A lot of negative that I could focus in on and be like, oh my gosh, all this stuff. But looking back now, I go, I took it the right way and said these were all learning times to learn, right? And I believe it helped me grow as a person, and it helped career path, obviously. And now it's allowing me the opportunity to educate other people, you hopefully that's watching and listening, on my specific journey and all the things that I've learned along the way, so that you can grow even faster than I did
and benefit
and
from
benefit.
it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what makes you valuable from that aspect as a person and working here. You've been on both sides of the fence.
When
now,
I talk to customers, and as soon as they learn that, hey, I'm not here to just sell you stuff. I take a lot of customer service calls amongst all the other 50 hats I wear at the time, you as well. I mean, you're not really on the phone as much because you're running big picture stuff. But as soon as I'm able to tell the customer, hey, I'm a printer. I come from the industry. I had my own shop. The owner of the company comes from the industry. He had his own shop as well. We get it. We understand your frustrations. We're not just talking to you to sell
stuff. That's not, because if you're here today, gone tomorrow, that does us no good.
Yeah.
And I would rather not sell something to somebody and help them grow.
Yeah. Because
there's another thing for your business is integrity and trust. If your customers can't trust you, they're not going to come back, or they won't like to deal with you.
Yeah.
And I would rather have that reputation and make less money, I guess. At least I can sleep at night.
You got morals and
you have to have a foundation.
Yeah.
And that's really what I think you should try to do as a business owner, is build your business, help your employees, give them something to fight for in the business, so they can do the same thing. They can go home and sleep at night comfortably, knowing they're not, trying to pull one over on somebody or whatever. That's just business in general. There's a lot of people in business in general that do that.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, I think that's really what you should strive for. Have morals and integrity, and give people the best value. Treat your people and make a product that you would want to buy yourself, period.
Yeah, and your customers, even without saying that, your customers pick up on these things.
They will pick up on
even
it.
It's
the little things.
If you plan on never having employees and you just have a direct-to-garment printer to print and make money for yourself, to have a solo business, your customers will pick up on all of these points that you're making and know like, hey, I'm glad that I'm spending my money with you to give
Because
you the
you
service
care.
that you're selling.
Yeah, because you care.
Yeah.
And I think
And
that's
that
the
helps
big
your
thing.
business grow in and of itself.
Yeah.
You know, you're not making a quick cashier to lose that customer the next day.
Yeah. And we've known businesses like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's one shirt and there's 300 million people in the country, so who cares? I can get another sucker to buy a shirt. But that's not how you want to do it, not really the way I want to run business. But with that being said, I would say we probably overrun our allotted time for this segment.
We set the rules here, baby.
I know. Yeah. And it was supposed to be 10 minutes, and we're probably now like 30 at this point.
Well,
but
you heard my little story and how that developed into some business ups and downs. More of my stories will come out. We'll get into yours. Brian's story is absolutely amazing. So, which kind of, we alluded to a little bit there.
And that'll have to be covered over multiple things. And it'll come out over time.
Yeah.
But I would say, thank you for sharing your story.
Happy to share. I could.
And we will take this
share more
again. Yeah, we'll definitely be sharing a lot more.
And again, if you find interest in kind of what we're doing here and would love to, be a guest or be a part of the show, give your stories, give your success stories, your scary stories, all of your experiences, or just to share, hey, try this out. It worked for me. Anything related to not only the printing side of things, which of course we will hit upon very heavily in multiple episodes, specific things of that nature, but everything that surrounds what you're doing in direct-to-garment.
Business, personal, maybe. And other. Other non.
And I promise to bring the entertainment every time.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So
you have to laugh.
We do.
Life is too damn short.
To laugh at yourself, which you do quite well.
I do.
But hey, so we appreciate you joining us for this episode of the Daily DTG, and we will catch you next time.